this week's topic is about buttonholes again, and more specifically about buttonholes in seed stitch. One reason I mention this is that for level 2 of the master's program, you have to work buttonholes in a variety of stitch patterns, and seed stitch is one. And there's something you should be aware of. When you are doing seed stitch, because the pattern is knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, and it alternates on different rows, you want to make sure that you can continue that pattern in the towards the end of the row. So I'll show you how you do this in a second. Now notice in this buttonhole that I have my neat little buttonhole here, and that the pattern continues across the row. On this sample, notice how it does not. I've got this funny little thing right here and does not look great. And I used to see this a lot when I was reviewing for the master's program, so I was reminded I wanted to discuss this. Remember that when you're doing seed stitch, I'm doing knit, purl, but I am going opposite to what was on the row before. So I have a knit stitch here, so my first stitch will be a purl, knit, purl. So I'm going to get started, and then I'll place a buttonhole. And I say normally I want to work the buttonhole above a purl stitch. They just tend to work a little better. So I'll have my yarn over before the purl stitch, and then I knit the two together. Now I'll try that, but look what happens when I get to the next stitch. I forgot I was doing seed stitch, and my next stitch here is a knit stitch, but I knit these two guys together, and that's going to disrupt the pattern. So what I want to do is I want to make my yarn over where I've got a knit stitch on the previous row. So I do my yarn over, and then I do my knit two together, because look at this guy, this is a purl. That means that I would be knitting above it. I knit into it, and then I purl, and I go merrily along. Now actually, you can do it that other way. You just have to remember to use a knit purl two together. So let's say I want to do another buttonhole here. I've got my purl stitch, I do my yarn over, but I'm going to want to purl these two guys together, and that will keep me in pattern. Now the problem is, normally when you're doing a yarn over, you just bring the yarn in front, but because this is, I'm going to be purling those stitches, I have a couple of options. I can bring my yarn around this way and then purl them together, but that's going to be a pretty big yarn over, and if I do this consistently on all the buttonholes, that's fine. But I don't want to be mixing it up where I'm doing some where I'm knitting two together and some purling two together, because I'm going to get different yarners. I can also bring the yarn over the back of the needle and then purl it, but that's going to be a fairly small and tight yarn over. Either one of those ways will work, but right now I'm going to do it wrong so you can see what it looks like. I'm going to do a yarn over, I'm going to knit these two guys together, and then I'm going to have to knit that. So if you're doing your buttonhole and you see this situation, it's time to rethink. Now when you're doing a button band, frequently you're picking up all of the stitches along the front, and that's going to give you more options. You just have to keep this in mind when you're spacing it, how you want those stitches to appear. If you're working the button band while you're knitting the sweater, so you're going to be working the buttonholes up this way, do keep in mind how you set up your stitches. If I've got 9 stitches where I'm going to be doing my button band, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I want to make sure that the center stitch is going to be a knit stitch on those rows, because then that way the thing is going to line up correctly. In the video, or rather in my blog at arendaholiday.com, spelled correctly, I have more information about this, and I detail it with a lot of photos as well.